Then comes mutualistic coevolution. Mutualistic coevolution where both of them are benefiting, as because both of them are dependent or interdependent, both of them have to evolve together, right? So one of the factor can be pollination because the plant pollinates with respect to or with the help of insects. So if plant is evolving, the pollinators or the insects have also evolved. Okay, so the insect pollinated flowers, entomophilous flower, or it may be also bird pollinated flowers like ornithophilous flowers. So this sort of interaction, the interaction that happens between a flower and the bird or the insect is important because they are interdependent. One is dependent on nectar or the resource, whereas the other is dependent on pollination. Same goes for dispersal, where the host or let's say the participant, one is getting resources or nutrition, the other one is getting dispersal. So both of these is plant animal interaction is very important, very important aspect, and many of the questions come from this area where we talk about how pollination, how different adaptation of pollination is working around. So you can study about it in detail, but this is just to give an idea. It's important that you go through the subjects to get more idea, so you can walk around, find around more videos and you can get better ideas about it. Then comes species specific mutualism like fig and fig wasps. So that sort of interaction is species specific. No other species can come and sit in the fig except the fig wasp. So that sort of interaction, the fig wasp and fig development interaction is mutualistic. But if one is evolving, the fig is evolving, then the fig wasp has to evolve as well. Both of them evolve in such a manner that they become mutually exclusive to pollinate, dispersal, and that is species specific only. Then comes adaptive mutualism, where one particular species may evolve or adapt from multiple species. Now, acacia and acacia ants, when one particular species of acacia ant can be mutually exclusively co-evolving with respect to 5 or 6 species as well, right? So that sort of interaction is mutualistic. They are interdependent. Both of them are evolving in a manner such that both of them are co-evolving, right? For example, in a long tube flowers, when the tube is getting longer and longer, the birds are getting longer beak as well, right? So that sort of interaction is mutualistic. Then comes parasitic evolution, where one species is harming the other. Okay, here there is a parasite, there is a host, there is a prey. So that sort of interaction happens where one is harming the other. Like it's a predatory prey and predatory, but mutualistic, right? So if one is harming the other, then the one which is harming has to co-evolve with respect to the individual who is resisting them. Okay, so there is obligate parasites like ticks, mites, as because they require that sort of animals to live and the resources that they have, the obligate parasite have to co-evolve with respect to that of the organisms. Let's say if we evolving and developing some sort of deterrent on the body, then they will co-evolve with respect to the deterrent. They will resist that deterrent, and only individuals which have higher fitness rate, I mean, which are able to resist that and getting higher fitness will be available to stay or will be evolving, will be selecting. Okay, then there is brood parasite. We have studied about brood parasite as because I was mentioning, how brood parasitism works out, where a brood is parasitized by a different bird. Let's say in brood parasite, a particular bird of warbler is being parasitized by cuckoo. So warblers also develop different adaptations to make their egg different from that of the cuckoo. So cuckoos also develop different adaptation in order to achieve better position in kind of a parasite. Let's say a warbler developed camouflaging eggs and different eggs which appears different from that of the cuckoo's chick or cuckoo's egg. Now even if that happens, the cuckoo will co-evolve in such a manner that their hatchlings will hatch faster than that of the warbler, so that the hatchlings hatch faster and then they can remove the eggs from the nest. Okay, and they have also evolved more red beaks and larger calling intervals and mimicking their voices, so that it will be better adapted at feeding from the host mother. So that sort of interaction, the co-evolution of going on, the female of the host and the chicks of the brood parasite are co-evolving. Okay, both of them are co-evolving for multiple adaptation and co-adaptations or counter adaptations. Then there is host pathogen interaction. It is studied in immunology so much that there is host and pathogens interaction where the host is developing resistance and the pathogen is developing anti-resistance to it. Okay, so it is getting resistance on the antibiotics that is being produced or antibodies that are being produced. So there is always a coevolution or evolutionary arms race going on between the host and the pathogen, where host is getting better, more immune systems, where the pathogen is getting more resistant to the drugs or antibiotics that are available. Then there is intermediate host as well. So till now we are studying about direct interaction with the host and the parasite, but there are multiple hosts, the vectors. So they also have to evolve with respect to the vectors. If the vectors are evolving, the parasites have to evolve with respect to the vectors as well as with respect to the secondary host, primary host. Okay, so that sort of interaction, both with respect to intermediate host as well as direct host, there has to be, coevolution, because intermediate hosts are the hosts which allow the parasite to sexually mature. The vectors or the intermediate hosts usually carry the immature cells or immature hosts, embryos, and then they allow them to grow so that they're available to reproduce in that of the main host's body. So that sort of interaction, as because they have to evolve according to the environment of the vector as well as that of the primary host. So this sort of coevolution, parasitic coevolution, works around both ways. Okay, so coevolution in here refers to the factor, the race that is going between to go better than that of the predator, and the predator is getting better at catching the prey. So both of them are running, both of them are getting better, and both of them are winning, and both of them are losing as well. So this sort of interaction, this sort of race is continuously going on, and this change, this competition is what driving evolution forward. If there would be no competition, no one will evolve. There will be no natural selection because one is getting fit and one is getting fine. Fine with is what it has, but the competition tells it to produce better kind of fitness variation such that it can sustain, it can compete, it can co-evolve, it can get better at detection or warding off or escaping from the predator, and as well as better competitor in suitable mates as well. So these competition, this interaction, the biotic interaction results in entire movement of evolution, right? And the other factor or the other part of coevolution is diffuse coevolution, where there is multi-specific interaction, where one specific individual co-evolves with multiple groups. Okay, it evolves with one particular species, but it can be used or it has adaptation that is variable and can be utilized for multiple species as well. So it is also called as multispecies coevolution. Like one particular insect evolved with respect to one particular flowering plant. Let's say a beetle evolved longer beak or longer, let's say a beetle evolved longer proboscis to suck out nectar from a flowering plant. Now this longer proboscis can be utilized for any flower that has longer tubes, right? So the trait that developed from that of the long tubes can be utilized for any flowers that have long tubes. So this sort of interaction, this sort of coevolution is called diffuse or guild coevolution, where one particular species has co-evolved a trait for multiple species of secondary opposite party. Then comes the theoretical idea of mosaic theory or coevolution, where it tells about coevolution can be based upon multiple ideas, not only a single idea of competition or interpredatory interaction, or not just dependent on interaction, but it is dependent on three multiple factors. That is genetic factor, where it is talking about adaptation, flow of genes, inheritability, and then there is geographical interaction. Geographical interaction talks about ecological aspects, the resources that are available, and it also forms the evolutionary basis. So all three are important to form a co-evolutionary process. So it is based upon observation that species are usually in groups which form genetically distinct features. So there is variation, which is the genetic basis. Then there is interaction between the species, between the communities, that happens with respect to resources, that is geographical variations. And then there is interaction with respect to different ecological environments that happens over time, that is geographical variation. And these interacting species co-occur in multiple ranges with multiple time periods. So evolution is a basis of all that. Okay, so co-evolution functions out on multiple mosaic system, multiple systems where that is dependent on genetic, geographical and evolutionary aspect. So there is GGE model also called. Okay, so that's that. Thank you.